Hello, everybody. Welcome along. Cricket Badger Podcast, IPL 2022. And, well, if you're like me, you've been right royally entertained over the last 2 days. The IPL mega auction in action. We've seen so many players up for grabs. Some unsold, some been bought for huge sums of money, and some people being ignored completely. First of all, before we go on and before I bring in my fan badges, a big shout out to Hugh, the auctioneer, who was taken unwell on day one, fell off the stage, and everybody was massively concerned. So, Hugh Edsmeads, if you're watching this, I hope you're well, and I hope you bounce back very quickly indeed, because you gave us, I'm sure you gave yourself a fright, but you gave us a fright as well. So hopefully back to full speed very soon indeed. Rito and Claire are with me at the moment. We might be joined by Anand as well in a few seconds' time. Rito, let's start with you. It's quite an occasion, the IPL auction, isn't it? It's always interesting. And when it's a mega one like this, and each of the 10 now franchises are almost starting from scratch. Obviously, they were able to retain 3 players each, but, and they've brought a few back in that they had already. But there are very, very new look franchises, and it's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Although after 2 such long days, you feel a bit tired as a supporter, keeping track of all the updates coming in. But there are 2 new franchises coming in this time: Lucknow Super Giants and Gujarat Titans. There's a lot of excitement going on, and I'm very happy about the picks that my side KKR have made in the past 2 days.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I introduced you, we've got the Punjab Kings Queen in front of us, Claire, who will be rooting for them as we go through IPL 2022. Rito puts the R in KKR. He's the Kolkata Knight Riders fan. And Claire, Punjab Kings, are you happy with what you've seen?
Yeah, I am actually. Really happy. I mean, there's one slight deviation I'm going to have to make from my normal standpoint, which
I know what you're going to say.
Accept a lanky. But obviously, Over the Moon with Johnny Bairstow, that was a great pick, I thought. But yeah, welcome aboard, Liam Livingston. You're the exception to my rule. So there you go.
You make an exception for Liam. I mean, Liam went for big money, didn't he? I mean, he's obviously a superstar, isn't he? When he is in full flow in a T20, he can hit the ball as hard and as far as anybody. We all remember that 6 over the new stand at Headingley, which is still going, I think. I don't think they've actually got that ball back yet. And yeah, you can understand why a franchise like Punjab Kings would want to spend the big bucks on him.
Yeah, I can. I mean, not that I want to curse anything. It does feel a bit like when they went crazy after Glenn Maxwell a couple of seasons ago, and
you've not forgiven him yet, have you?
So yeah, obviously hoping it doesn't work out like that. But I think that's just kind of what Punjab needed, right in the middle order and a bit of an all-rounder, and hopefully he'll work his magic.
It's amazing how a few minutes in a room full of people with lots of money to spend can change somebody's life, can't it? I mean, I'm sure Liam wasn't hunting around for coppers to pay the gas bill, because he's done okay. He's playing for England. He's got a successful career anyway. But the fact that he's gone for over £1 million in this auction, that is life-changing. That is, I mean, it's not even slightly life-changing. That sets him up forever, doesn't it?
Yeah, certainly does. And I mean, I guess the thing is, like, whether he performs or not, it sets him up forever. And it's his opportunity to make his name on the big stage, kind of the biggest stage. And I guess in some ways, that's what the IPL is about for players, isn't it? Is, that the ultimate break. Because, like you say, he's played successfully for Lancashire, for one of those 100 teams, for England, and he's playing in the PSL. So yeah, but that is like, wow, like you said, truly life-changing money, isn't it?
Well, let's try and score these teams as we go through. Punjab Kings, we'll start with them because we're talking about them already. Mayank Agarwal and Ashdeep Singh were the 2 retained players, 2 very good players. I'm sure you're happy to see them retained. But some of the star names that have been brought in through the auction, Shikhar Dhawan's in there. You've got Kahisa Rabada, Johnny Bairstow, you've mentioned Rahul Chahar, really good spinner. Going through the list, Liam Livingston, we've talked about him. Dean Smith, the
Dean
West
Smith
Indian.
was a good one, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a star quality, hasn't he? So there's a number in there. Nathan Ellis as well. Benny Howell, the Englishman, is in there too. In terms of a score out of 10 for your satisfaction or your delight with Punjab Kings, where would you put them?
I put them really highly, actually. I'll go for 9.5, notwithstanding the Lanky.
Rito, let's bring you in for a bit of counter balance there, because Claire's obviously biased. How did you see the Punjab Kings? So I'll tell you before you answer, what the one thing that really annoyed me with Punjab Kings through the auction was how long they took to bid. They had a conference after every single bid. And you'd think, I mean, we saw Chennai Super Kings, the guy that was holding their paddle, he was like straight in,
Yeah.
bid straight away. You would think coming into an auction, Rito, that you would have an idea of your sort of top end bid for a certain player regardless. And it wouldn't take that kind of discussion. Why do you need to have can you just wait for me? We're just still talking. Why is that necessary?
Yeah, I thought the Punjab Kings think tank took a bit of advantage of Charu Sharma, who is not a regular auctioneer, as we all know. Maybe if it was the regular Hugh Edmis in place of Charu Sharma, he wouldn't allow him so much of time.
But to be fair, they were still keeping Hugh waiting. I mean, Hugh had his collapse in the middle of when Indu Hasaranga going up into double digits in terms of crore, and I wonder if that played a part in him getting getting annoyed because Punjab Kings were keeping him waiting.
Yeah, you would expect Hugh to suffer from hypertension, but it was a case of hypotension.
I think he was falling asleep. I think he was falling. So I mean, we mentioned the names there. Mentioned the names there, Rita. Claire's given them a very biased 9.5. Where would you score them in the out of 10 market?
Yeah, even I think they have had a very good auction, picking up Johnny Best at a cheap price. Then they went for Liam Livingston. Now, of course, remember, it's not only about hitting sixes from Liam Livingston. He regularly provides a couple of overs with his off spin, leg spin, whatever he bowls. And he's an excellent fielder. So they have had a very good auction, picking up Shikhar Dhawan in the first pick of yesterday. So they've had a fairly good auction, I would say, an 8.5.
Oh, so good score from you as well. I was going to go with 8 because I like to keep my powder dry. I'm going to give myself some wriggle room to be able to go higher maybe later on. But that's a good score to start off with the Punjab Kings. That's 9.5 plus 8.5. What's that? That makes it 18 plus my 8. That gives them 26 out of 30. It's going to complicate things if Anand joins us now because it'll be out of 40. We might have to go back and get his opinion on the Punjab Kings. But good score there, Claire. And how confident are you going into the next cycle with that squad available for you? Are you feeling better about life now than you were maybe with the previous squad?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think they looked strong on paper previously. So, it's not about just looking strong. It's about putting the right combination out there on the day and kind of, how it all comes together, not necessarily what it looks like on paper. Because, like I say, I thought they were pretty strong before, but it didn't really work out. So, let's see.
They've had some good performances in the past, but then they followed it with a bad performance. Maybe this squad might bring you a little bit more consistency. Anand Beaker's with us. Anand Beaker, can you hear me?
I certainly can. Really happy to see you guys again.
And we're just talking. You're fined, by the way. You're fined for late appearance, but we'll let you off. We're just talking about the Punjab Kings, the first franchise that we're looking at today, Anand. And so far, we're giving them a score out of 10 for how successful we think a team's been in the auction so far. So you've joined us at just the right time to not skew our scoring system further down the line. Claire's given them a very biased 9.5 out of 10. Rito, though, was quite happy too. 8.5 from Rito. I've given them an 8. Where are you on the marks out of 10 for Punjab?
I'm at a 9. I actually think they've done a decent job with this auction. There are obviously a few things that they need to figure out as they go forward. I mean, one of the things we have seen with this auction is with the addition of 10 teams, you've seen that the talent has gotten spread around a little. So every team has holes, right? But I do think that they have a decent team on board. And I'm curious to see how Liam Livingston is going to go. Obviously, he's plied his trade. He's shown he's super destructive. He's done really well internationally. Not so in the IPL, right? So with the Rajasthan Royals, I don't think he scored too many runs. So I'm curious to see how well they go there. And also they added Raj Bava, who I'm pretty interested to see. He's the under-19 player. So curious to see how that goes. Obviously, it'll take a couple of years for him to go. But considering we're looking at the next 5 years, this is a fairly decent team that they have.
Yep, I agree. I think we're all thumbs up for the Punjab Kings, which makes Claire smile. And they get a score out of 40 of 35, which I think is pretty impressive, really, as we move on to our next franchise. Let's go to the Rajasthan Royals as the next one. Anand, by the way, if you've not seen us before, is the Mumbai Indians fans. We'll talk about Mumbai Indians, which is coincidentally my team too. So we'll talk about them a bit further down the line. But Rajasthan Royals, they retain Sanju Samson, Yashashvi Jayaswal and Josh Butler. Josh Butler giving a little bit of a welcome to Ravichandran Ashwin on Twitter, because they've got a little bit of history, but now playing in from the same dressing room. Some of the star names that were bought in the auction, Ashwin being one, Trent Bolt's in there, Shimron Hetmeyer is in there, Devdutt Padikkal, terrific player. I think he's got a huge 5 years ahead of him, potentially. Prasid Krishna, Yuzvendra Chahal, Rian Parag went quite cheaply to them, but he's got experience in the IPL too. Plenty there to look at. Kuldeep Yadav's in there as well, Jimmy Neesham, Nathan Coulter, Niall, Rassi van der Dussen, Daryl Mitchell, loads. Trent Bolt, as you say, Claire. So I think they've done pretty well, Rajasthan Royals. Anand, let's start with you on them. They've always been a team that have had some star players, but maybe not had the strength in depth. But as I just suggested, by reading as many names out there as I did, I think they've got a decent side put together there, potentially.
I thought they had a really decent side last year as well. So I think, they have a decent side, but as I referred to earlier, it feels like every team has holes. So the question is, who opens? So you got Devdutt Padikkal, you got Yashasvi Jaiswal, and you got Josh Butler. Now, there's a couple of ways you can go about this. Bring Josh Butler and play him down the, maybe in the middle or in the finishing role, or give him the most balls that a person can face, which makes more sense to have him as opener. So then what happens between Devdutt and Yashasvi? Because both of them, with Devdutt, he's done really well, but he sort of slows down in that middle period. He can go pretty explosive at the top, but then he slows down. Yashasvi is, sort of getting his footing as well. So they got some interesting choices to make in there. And then also, I think, what happens to Rian Parag? I mean, they paid him a decent amount of money. He's got a lot of talent. Can he go and make that number 6 spot his own? So interesting choices. But what I do love about their team are Ashwin and Yuzvendra Chahal. I think Chahal was a find of the auction. Well, find is the wrong word, but really the value pick of the auction. Because how much did he go for? I think it was, I'm forgetting 6.5 crores. So I think for a top-notch leg spinner in the IPL, I think they've done really well there. So R. Ashwin, Chahal, and then you put in Trent Bolt at the top of the order. So I think that works well. The question is who bowls the death overs there? Because it's not Prasid Krishna, who's probably going to operate at the start and the middle, and Bolt gets hit around and towards the end.
Yeah, going to be interesting. I mean, this is what we've got with these teams at the moment. More questions than answers in a way, isn't it? It's how they're going to shape up, how they're going to perform when they're all combined. Will they be stronger than the sum of their parts, or will they be worse? Lots to discover when we hit the IPL 22, which makes it even more interesting, isn't it, with the way they're going to shape up as we go through those early games. How do you see them, Rita, Rajasthan Royals? Are you impressed with that lineup, or have you got your doubts?
Yeah, Rajasthan till the last round they had only 4 overseas players, and in the last round they picked up 4 overseas players in the matter of 4 minutes. Rassi van der Dussen and the other 3 they got picked in those 4 minutes. So that was a crazy 4 minutes from Rajasthan. They were lacking some quality overseas players, but now they have got a backbone to that side. Now Josh Butler, whether he will take up that captaincy role or not, we don't know. Or Sanju Samson will keep with it. But Sanju Samson, we have seen, has not done so well as a captain of the side. Maybe Josh Butler, now that England are looking at a different test match wicketkeeper, that might free him up. So Rajasthan, I think they have done a pretty good job in the last part of that auction. So a 7.5 for me.
I haven't asked you your score yet. You're going too early, Claire. Just jump back to your team, Punjab Kings. Who's going to be your captain? We didn't look at that. Who do you think is going to be the man that leads that team?
Well, it's got to be between Shikhar Dhawan and Mayank Agarwal, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting thing as well, isn't it? As they announce their captains going forward. I mean, Mayank's been kept for a reason, hasn't he? He's going to be playing.
Exactly.
So, I mean, him and Shikhar at the top of the order is a decent option for Punjab Kings going into the next incarnation of the IPL. Let's go. Your opinions on Rajasthan Royals, Claire, before we get the scores. Anybody in there that really stands out as impressive?
So, well, I mean, for me, there's a lot of people who stand out impressive, but it's trying to pick who you're going to play. There's loads of big names, but like we're talking, Anand was just saying, who's going to open, who's going to be, where are they all going to fit in? Because everybody needs to have a role. So it just at the moment feels like a lot of good names. Like what I was saying about Punjab Kings before, it was a strong team on paper, but how do they pull together as an actual, playing 11? So
that's one of the things with these squads as well, because you're only allowed to field 4 overseas, aren't you? So you can look down the squad list and think, star name, New Zealand, West Indies, whatever. But you can only play 4 at any time. So it's how the coach is going to stack them up in 11 that's going to be, because sometimes we see franchises leave a player out that you think, I'd play him, but he doesn't quite fit into the way they're going to mould that 11. So it's going to be interesting to see very much so how they pan out. Claire, your score out of 10 for Rajasthan Royals?
So, yeah, I mean, on star quality alone, I'd probably give them a higher mark, but just on how I see it coming together, I'm going to go for about an 8.
An 8 from you for Rajasthan Royals. Rito, what about you?
Yeah, 7.5, as I said earlier, James.
7 point. Yeah, you might have changed your mind though after Claire spoke. She might have influenced you. She influences many people. Anand, what about you for Rajasthan Royals?
I think it's a good squad. It's 8. They still got to figure out, who's going to fit. I think 3 of their overseas spots are taken by Bolt, Hetmeyer, Butler. What happens? Is it Neesham, Mitchell, Coulter-Nile? Who takes that sort of, number 7 spot? And so they got to figure things out. But I think it's a solid 8. It's a decent squad.
The only thing with Jimmy Neesham, Nathan Coulter-Nile, Daryl Mitchell, even Rassie van der Dussen, I don't think they're A-listers in terms of T20. They're good players, don't get me wrong. And on their day, they can really influence a match. But I'm not sure you'd put them in the top tier of overseas. So although it makes it look quite a good and strong squad, I wouldn't necessarily hang my hat on any of those to win me a match, really. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that settles down. Sorry, what was your score, Anand?
8.
8 for you. James. And I'm going to give them a 7. Rito wants to get back in. He loves doing this to me.
Yeah. No, one point on Rassie van der Dussen. I don't know how much you have seen of him, but he has played a lot against India of late, and he has impressed a lot of people here in India. So that's a parameter how a player is judged on the way how they play against India. So I think he might start in the first 11 for Rajasthan,
Okay, Rito's right behind Rassie then as we go into IPL 2022. Let's skip on to the Royal Challengers Bangalore, retaining Virat Kohli, Glenn Maxwell and Mohammad Siraj. And players bought at the auction. They've got Faf in there, Faf du Plessis in there, Harshal Patel's back with them as well, which I think is a good buy. When Endu Hasaranga broke the bank a little bit, Dinesh Karthik appears in an RCB shirt as well. Who else is there? Josh Hazlewood's been picked by them. Finn Allen's in there. Shafane Rutherford. Jason Berendorf's there too. Plenty there. David Willey as well from England from the RCB. Anand, RCB, massively frustrating, I guess, for their supporters. They've always had star quality, never really combined it to a squad or an 11 that could go on and win the tournament. Is this the squad that can do that for them?
So I think this one's an interesting squad that they put together. I actually thought the squad they had last year really worked out well, and you actually saw them do very well as well. I think Virat gets blamed for a lot of issues with RCB, but I think a lot of it is down to the squad they typically have. Chinnaswamy is a small stadium, and so you need to pick a strong bowling unit to defend out there. And I think they've done okay on that part. I think where they're missing out is what happens to some of their batsmen, because, where does Virat, first of all, slot in? So one of Virat Kohli at least has his career progressed. One of the cons of his batting has been how he's attacking spinners, especially in the last couple of years. He has sort of been milking the spinners. And it's not because of lack of intent, because we saw last year he kept trying to tee off and he wasn't doing very well. So I'm curious to see, how his game has evolved. So do you put him and Faf up front, or do you have Anuj Rawat, who they spend decent money on? I think they spend about 3.5 crores on him. If that's the case, do you put Anuj Rawat out there? The second question is, it's a huge punt on Vanendu Hasaranga, isn't it? Because if he fails, they have David Willey to take over. And that, David Willey is obviously a swing bowler. What happens to your spinning ranks then? Because they already got Hazelwood, Siraj, Harshad Patel. So they got enough pacers in there. So Hasaranga is going to be the key. He has done well internationally. He has not done well in the one season. I think he's played only one season in IPL. He has obviously not done well. So I'm curious to see how well Hasaranga goes, because he can be a little explosive, certainly hit spin better. And obviously he's a kick-ass bowler. So this one was weird for me, because when I was trying to fill in the squads and think about the starting 11s, this one wasn't as simple as you would think it should be.
Yeah.
So, I think they've done an okay job. I actually thought the day one of auction, great. Day two, not so great. So,
Rito, looking at that squad, I mean, there's a number of potential captains in there, because obviously Virat stood down, hasn't it? And it's going to be interesting to see how Virat Kohli goes without the responsibilities of the captaincy. It might free him up, and it's a big IPL for Virat, isn't it? Because he's not been in the best of form just of late. But you've got Glenn Maxwell in there, who was captain Melbourne Stars. He could take over at the helm for RCB. Faf du Plessis going across. He might fancy captaining RCB as well. Where would you go if you were in charge of RCB? Which player would you appoint as your skipper, Rito?
No, I think it's only a matter of time before RCB announce Faf as the captain, James. And they're one of their opening batsmen and Faf is going to open, I think, for them. That's what Mike hasn't said. Faf has played most of his career as an opener, so he will be at the top of the order.
I thought then you said my cousin, and I thought, what's your cousin got to do with this? But you said Mike Hessen, didn't you? Wanindu Hasaranga, I mean, he's massive. That off the back of what Anand said there, I love him as a player, though. He can bat really well. If he can actually get a bit of confidence with the bat, he could really be quite destructive too. So he is potentially a very good signing, but there's a lot of pressure on him. And that's one of the things with this IPL, Claire, isn't it? That you come with that big money tag. It's like a Premier League footballer transferring to another club. Jack Grealish going to Man City or whatever. You go with that price tag on your back, and you've got to perform to justify the price, haven't you?
Well, I mean, it'd be nice if they performed to justify the price, but obviously, like you say, that's the pressure of the situation. And I guess coming into a setup like RCB, he just has to fit in, and they have to. Yeah. I mean, it's a massive pressure. I think it's a really odd squad. I just, the amount they paid to get Hasaranga in there, and then it just feels really disjointed. Looking at the names,
it was weird, Claire. I don't know if you were watching when Hasaranga was under the hammer, but Hasaranga kind of like dribbled to about 2 crore or 2.4 crore or something, and the auctioneer was about to drop the hammer and say gone, because everybody seemed to have quietened down and nobody was interested. Then all of a sudden, bang, and he's up to double digits in terms of crore in his price. It's amazing how just a couple, you only need in an auction, don't you, 2 people to be really interested, and the price goes through the roof. We saw we'll come to it in just a second, Jason Roy, who has been in terrific form in the Pakistan Super League. Only one team was interested. There's only one bid, and he goes for the base price that he went in for. So it makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. But it's hard to sort of figure out. I mean, I think I watched a little bit of it last year, and I started watching it over the weekend. But it is quite fascinating to see, the sort of pace that some of them pick up by it, and then others like just being totally ignored. So yeah, it's an interesting process.
It's funny because I've seen kind of like the behind the scenes stuff when they're going into the auction, and they've got you see them, they're all sat there with the tablets and the laptops with all of the graphs and spreadsheets and things on there. And I think they even have dry runs on the auction. I don't know how you do that, because how do you know what anybody else is going to bid? But you kind of go through the process of trying to work out who your key players are and who you want to try and bid for. Claire, start with you again. Your mark out of 10 for RCB.
7.
7 for Claire. Anand.
I'll give it a 7 as well. I think these points that I'm giving out are pretty liberal, but 7 sounds about right because everyone has holes.
Rito.
It's a hat trick of 7s.
Hat trick of 7s. I'm gonna spoil the trend. James is going to go with a 6. I'm not particularly impressed by that RCB squad. They need a few of their star players in there to actually live up to the star billing. Otherwise, it might be it might be quite ordinary, that side. And it's gone from being a team with the stars. I mean, I suppose really they are reliant on their stars like they always have been. That's what RCB have been, and it's not always done them that much good. So that's 27 for RCB, which actually puts them in last place so far. Thanks for your message, SS98. We'll get to that in just a second, so stay tuned. We'll get to Jafar Archer and his potential impact on this next cycle in just a few minutes' time. Sunrisers Hyderabad. Neil is currently airborne flying to Australia, so we wish him well. If you tune in, he's our Sunrisers Hyderabad fan. They retained Kane Williamson, Umran Malik and Abdul Samad in their squad. Key purchases at the auction: Washington Sundar, Nicholas Pooran going for massive bucks. Natarajan is there. Bhuvneshwar Kumar is there. Priyam Garg's gone back to them. Abhishek Sharma's gone back to them. Kartik Tyagi, who's a young bowler I really like. I think he's, if his star continues to rise, the next 5 years could make him a real star of the IPL. Aidan Markram's there. Marco Janssen's gone across from Mumbai Indians in the auction. Sean Abbott's in their ranks now. Glenn Phillips is in there too. Let's start with you, Rito, on Sunrisers. How do you see them shaping up? Is anybody in there that surprised you? Do you think they've done well?
I think over and large they have done well, but one pick that I particularly want to talk about is Nicholas Pooran. How on earth do you pay such a high price for Nicholas Pooran? Yes, the man has potential. He has lots of talent, but he doesn't perform consistently to pay upwards of 10 crores, James.
I must admit I was surprised. I thought he'd sell. Don't get me wrong, because he's a young talent and he's got, the sky's the limit, isn't it, in terms of Nicholas Pooran? And I hate to say it, but I wonder if you buy him to stop somebody else getting him, because if he does come good, he could absolutely dominate the IPL. But there's been nothing in recent times, Claire. I mean, I know you're a big Nicholas Pooran fan and he's played for Yorkshire, but his recent performances in T20 haven't been stellar, have they, really?
No, I mean, he played in the Abu Dhabi T10, didn't he? Not this season, just gone, the one before, and smashed it all over. But I think since then, he hasn't really done very much at all. So, yeah, I was surprised that they really went after him. And obviously, I wish him well. But, it was a little bit bizarre, I think. I mean, he's one of those, I guess, like Hasaranga, who they've really chased him, paid the big bucks, and it's all eyes on him to score. I
suppose it goes back to what we were saying, Claire, about the price tag and the pressure of the price tag. Some players will puff their chests out and think, well, that's just validation of who I am as a person. I'm going to go out there and show you and actually mean it. Some players will be a bit timid. I get the impression with Pooran that he might actually quite relish the big price tag. I see his personality as maybe being one that he might try and live up to it and feel he can.
Well, I've seen him his potential for, if he starts performing for the captaincy role for like the West Indies, because some of his team talks that he gives after their matches are really inspirational.
Yeah, I've seen those as well. Yeah, walking around with what's wrong with the beer bottle, clinking, congratulations to you, and we've done this well, but we need to do this. Yeah.
And for a youngster in that team, he seems to, get a lot of respect, and he's able to really talk to them and rally the troops kind of thing. So I think that's good, but I wouldn't imagine that's anything like a role that he's going to play in this team. And I mean, I've got a little list here. It looks like he's going to be the wicket keeper, so I guess he gets a place. But I mean, you don't pay all that for a. I thought it was odd. I mean, obviously, good luck to him. It's really nice to see him do well. But big bucks on the back of a reputation rather than recent performance.
It's reputation plus what he might be rather than what he's really done, isn't it? But I mean, he's an all-rounder. He could, wicket keeper batsman, isn't he? He goes in there as an all-rounder, can bat top order. So we'll see how he goes. How do you see it, Anand? One of the names I didn't mention, Washington Sundar, is in there as well, who I rate highly. How do you see the Sunrisers going?
Well, what's a recurring theme? Lots of holes in this team. One of the things that I wonder about is Kane Williamson has been struggling with elbow injuries. From an Indian standpoint, we saw how Sachin Tendulkar changed his game because he had elbow injuries. So I'm curious, what is the availability of Kane? You're looking at the next 5 years. Obviously, he is one of the best in the world right now. But if something happens to Kane, and let's say Kane doesn't play the whole season, who takes over? I mean, maybe Markram at that point, from a batting standpoint. I don't really know whether they have any kind of replacements for Kane, any kind of backups to Kane. Secondly, I think the bigger question is what's going to happen with the Indian spinner. So, I mean, it looks like the best spinner they got is Shreyas Gopal, right? I mean, and then everything else is, Washington Sundar is very good, but he's a more defensive spinner. Washington doesn't take back full of wickets. So, do they have a wicket-taking Indian spinner? And they really don't. And that's where the question is: would they have been better off also getting somebody like a Zampa or a Adil Rashid? Or even Imran Tahir. I know Imran Tahir is older, but still, one of the best leggies in the world. So I'm curious why they did not, head that way. But, certainly a lot of holes in here. I think some of the cooler things with this team is Umran Malik. Now, there's a big, huge punt on him as well. But bowlers who can bowl 95 and up are very hard to find. So, I'm curious to see how he goes, because you got Umran Malik, you got Karthik Tyagi, and then you got Bhuvneshwar and Natarajan. So I think they got a decent pace attack from that side, and also Marco Janssen sitting as well. So, I'm curious to see how it'll go, but there's lots of holes in there, and they really hope that Kane Williamson is good. On Puran, I go on the other side with you guys. I think he's 27 years old, right on the peak of where he should be. He's either going to make it or break it. So obviously a huge punt. But let's look at his 3 seasons, right? He had 2020, played 14 matches, 353 runs, 170 strike rate. 2021, 85 runs, 12 matches, 111 strike rate. Which Puran do you get is going to be the question. But is he destructive? Is he young? Is he when you look at the auction and think that you're going to have this team for 5 years, it's a decent bet. So, I'm curious how he goes, but I'm not as down on Puran as you guys are.
I mean, the kind of agreeing with you now is at the age of 27, if this is a 5-year cycle, they've got the best of him, haven't they? They've got his peak years potentially. So you can see why you'd be tempted to take him on that basis. Rito, just finally on Sunrisers, Karthik Tyagi, I've mentioned he's a player that I really like. He's got, again, 5 years ahead of him, which could be quite explosive. He's a bowler that I think could really blossom. Natarajan in their bowling attack as well. They do have a lot of youngsters in there that over the next 5 years could really mature as SRH players.
Yeah, even if you look at, they have brought back Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, they have got T. Natarajan. So those are 2 homegrown fast bowlers who they know about. And on the batting front, they have bought Rahul Tripathi, who has done pretty well for Kolkata. So that's a good pick. And coming back to that Nicholas Puran thing, I think, James, with 2 new franchises, now the talent is slightly diluting. So there's a bit of supply and demand mismatch. And so teams will go mad after players who have a bit of potential to perform in the future. So that's maybe one of the bigger punts that a franchise has taken in this auction.
Claire, you mark out of 10 for SRH.
7.
7 for Claire. Anand?
6.5.
6.5 for Anand. Rito?
5. I'm going to deduct a point for Nicholas Puran.
He's a very harsh man, isn't he, Rito? I'm going to go with 6 for SRH. I'm not convinced. They could be great. If some of those youngsters stand up and really mature over the next 5 years, they could be fantastic. But I'm going to kind of keep my powder dry before committing to that. So we've got, 13.5, 18.5, 24.5 is the score for SRH, which actually puts them bottom of the 4 teams so far. We're going to have to maybe speed up a little bit, chaps, as we go through, or chaps and chapess, as we go through this. Look now, Super Giants, one of the new franchises. We're not doing this in alphabetical order at all, are we? We have KL Rahul, Ravi Bishnoi, and Marcus Stoinis were their picks. You've got the likes of Quinton de Kock in there, Manish Pandey, Jason Holder, Deepak Huda, Krunal Pandya, Mark Wood, Avesh Khan. Some good names in there. Evan Lewis. Where do you see them, Rito? How do you see look now shaping up in their first incarnation of the IPL?
Yeah, the first auction has been a great one for them. Picking up the likes of Quinton de Kock for 675 only. It was a real steal on the first day. Then Mark Wood, Dushman Chamira, Avesh Khan, they have got that pace trio. They can really shake up a lot of batting lineups with that pace bowling trio. So it's going to be really fun watching them in the upcoming season.
Claire, what do you think?
Well, I think that Jason Holder in the middle of that is is going to be key. I mean, his recent performances, whether it's stepping up with the ball or stepping up with the bat, he'll slot into any side. So I think that's be really exciting to see how he goes. Happy for Mark Wood. Yeah, they've just about got a team together there.
KL's going to be captain, you'd think, wouldn't he?
Yeah, you think so, wouldn't you? But yeah, well, definitely.
I mean,
That's why they picked him, didn't they?
He's your former captain. Do you
Yeah.
think he's worthy?
Well,
Because Jason, you could give it to Jason Holder. There's maybe a, even Quinton de Kock could be given that responsibility, couldn't he? Do you think KL's the standout?
Well, I think they've picked him. They picked him ahead of the auction for that role. I think so. I guess that's what they had in mind. I mean, I rate Jason Holder as a captain, but I think the way the team set up, it's kind of was built around KL Rahul at the top, wasn't it? So
yeah, Jason Holder's not a bad right hand man, is he, to have on your side? Anand, look now, Super Giants. How do you see them?
Absolutely love what they've done in the auction. I think this is a very strong team. I think also we were missing out on the fun component of the auction. Huda and Krunal Pandya in the same side. They fought, and it's legendary. Apparently, Pandya abused Huda and he left the ground, and now they play on different teams. So this all happened when they're playing for the domestic team of Baroda. So curious to see how they all fit in. And really, they might actually not just be on the same team, but might play and bat with each other. Because, I mean, ideally, you would have Huda at like 5 and Krunal at 6 or vice versa, right? So it should be interesting to see how they go. But apart from that, I think this team covers all the bases. Bishnoi, you got a gun leggy. Obviously, he's a little young, but you have a gun leggy there. With Wood and Chamira, you got that really, high pace. Avesh Khan was a star for the last couple of seasons. He's done well. And, with de Kock, as Rita mentioned, I think that's a value pick. That's an absolute value pick. And then you have Stoinis, who I really rate high. So, I mean, this is a great team. I absolutely love what they've done here. You
could see, Rito, KL Rahul obviously got a load of runs in the last few incarnations. There's been suggestions that maybe he's batted too slowly, but I think my defence of him would be he knew he had no middle order with the Punjab Kings, so he had to take the responsibility and be a bit more careful. With this team, I think KL could be freed up a little bit. You got Quinton de Kock potentially opening with him. That's an explosive top order, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a very explosive top order. But even for his innings that he played for Punjab, by the end of the innings, his strike rate was kind of okay for a T20 innings, all the knocks that KL Rahul played. But one thing that strikes me with this Lucknow team is the price that they paid for Jason Holder. Does he really warrant? How much did they pay for him? 875 lakhs, maybe. I'm not sure about such a high price.
I'll tell you what, I'd take him.
100%. I would take Jason Holder at 8.75. Make it 10. You would need him. He can hit, he can bowl, he can swing the ball. Absolutely. I think he fits into the top 11 of the team too.
And when he came in for Sunrisers last year, I thought it was great as well. Like he fit right in, didn't he? And he performed really well.
If you look at some of the other players in the auction that have taken the really big money, I think Jason Holder actually comes out as value.
Yeah,
right.
But if you look at his T20 strike rate, it's not something very flashy, and his economy rate is also almost touching 8. So if you're looking at an all-rounder, perfect all-rounder, you would want him to strike at maybe 150 and keep it at 7.5. That's what I'm thinking.
He was really good. I mean, he went for a few runs against Moeen Ali in one of the T20 internationals against England recently, but in a couple of them, he was absolutely unplayable. I think I'd take him, and I think 8.5 or whatever it is decent for him. Let's round up with
It's at those 4 at the end of the innings.
And he got a 4 he took 4 in a row as well, didn't he? But in the first T20 international, he got a load for absolutely nothing, didn't he? He was terrific. Look now, then, Claire. Look now. How do you rate them?
I'm giving him an 8.
An 8 from Claire. Good score to start with. Anand.
Look, I was getting 9. They've done a great job.
Rito.
9.
I thought you were going to say to me there, I'm going to take one off for Jason Holder, but you didn't do. You resisted the temptation. I'm going to give them 8.5. So, we are quite impressed with Now Super Giants. It's going to be good to see how they get on. So that gives them a score of 26, 34.5 out of 40, which puts them as we stand at the moment, in second place in our assessments of the squad so far. Let's go on to the Delhi Capitals. Rishabh Pant has stayed. Aksa Patel, Prithvi Shaw, and Anrik Nortje retained players for Delhi Capitals. They brought in David Warner, Mitch Marsh, the Australian, is in there under Ricky Ponting. Charles Thakur has moved to Delhi as well. Claude Yadav is in there. Safras Khan, one of the youngsters, is in there too. Who else have they got? Ripal Patel is in there. You've got Tim Seifert. Lungi Ungidi is in there as well, Claire. Delhi always had a really good bowling attack. I guess that's going to be retained as well. Chetan Sakaraya, one of my favourites of the IPL. He's always smiling. He's in there and he's got a big future as well. How'd you rate Delhi?
Yeah, they've got Mr. Mustafizur as well, haven't they?
Yes.
So yeah, I like the look of them. I think they've got a really strong looking squad, especially the bowling, like you said. And then they got Rovman Powell, didn't they, as well? I think. Yep. So yeah, I would say they've got a really strong squad, definitely.
I mean, Rovman Powell was either hit or miss against England, but when he was hit, he was hitting it a long way, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he's one of them that could have a real massive impact. You don't know, and like you say, over the life cycle of his time with them, there's big opportunities for him.
And he's built like a boxer, isn't he? He's got massive shoulders. He's got muscles on his muscles. He's a powerful unit, Rovman Powell. It'd be interesting to see if he gets his opportunity, I guess, as well as an overseas player. He may have to bide his time, but DC have got a good one in him as well. Anand, Delhi Capitals.
So I actually think this is one of those squads which has also gone down a little when you compare to last year. They had a much stronger squad then, but again, with the IPL just expanding, maybe they're okay. I like what they did with Warner. Warner is going to provide the stability which allows Prithvi to go nuts at the top, which he likes to do anyways. And then, I'm curious whether Mitchell Marsh, after his heroics in the IPL World Cup, can sort of match up to what Stoinis used to provide. And, Mitchell Marsh maybe not more of a finisher, maybe he comes up early and maybe he can tonk the ball around. So, it's interesting where they're at, but I think they're still a fairly strong squad. Sarfraz Khan, I think they got him for 20 lakhs or something. This kid's got talent. He hasn't, he's had a couple of okay IPLs. I think, this is if he comes in at number 5 with the laps, sweeps, he's a 360-degree player. So I'm curious to see whether he can actually do justice to his talent. He's been touted for a long time as the next big thing. He hasn't made it happen, but let's see what happens there. And, the fast bowling resources, I think they lose Rabada, but they bring in Fizz and they bring in Ngidi. I think that's, still pretty decent. So I like the squad. And, you just mentioned Chetan Sakari. I think, 2020 was not very good for the poor guy. And, I'm really happy that, he's been picked into this team. He's doing well. Really look forward to him doing well with some of his slowies or whatnot. So feel-good story. Back then it was a feel-good story, and I really hope it's a feel-good story going forward.
Yeah, Chetan's one of those guys. He's got that backstory, haven't he, of coming rags to riches, kind of IPL dream ticket. And as I say, he just looks like he's enjoying it. It looks like he's reveling in it every time you see him play. And he's got plenty of good performances behind him as well. I really like him as a player. If I'm a Delhi Capitals fan, he's one of the first people I'm going to be nodding towards and smiling about. Rito, Rishabh Pant's going to be captain again, I think, isn't he? But he's got David Warner in there with him, as well as plenty of experience in that squad too. So that's possibly one of the ways they've gone with that, haven't they? They've got a young, exciting captain, but he's got a few lieutenants around him to help him through.
Yeah, they've got quite a few good picks. If you look at David Warner at 625, it's a good pick. Mitchell Marsh, maybe they should ask him to do the same role that he did for Australia in the T20 World Cup, come in at number 3 and just tonk the bowling. Then Anrik Nortje hopefully is fit after the injury in the India series. He is going to be pretty lethal. And Lungi Ngidi, Tim Seifert, all these two players at their base values are going to be real value picks. The fun part with the Delhi auction was that their owner somehow tried to up the price of Khalil Ahmed again with Mumbai Indians, and then Mumbai backed out and they had to purchase him.
That was the guy, the big guy, wasn't it? He seemed to be very, very astute when he was raising his paddle. He picked up a couple very cheap. and he also bid up a few other players to kind of make build up the price for other teams. And he got there was a period on late on the first day where they got 4 or 5 players just straight away. Everybody else had gone to sleep, and Delhi Capitals picked up a load of very good players. So I think he was an expert with that paddle. His bids were terrific. Claire, Delhi Capitals marks out of 10.
8.
8 from Claire. Anand?
8.5. I think they're just below Lucknow.
Rito?
Yeah, 7.5.
7.5. You're not taking off any deductions there for Delhi? There's nothing that's really upset you?
Nah.
No, okay, that's good. I did want to make sure you're happy, Rito. I want to make sure you're happy. I'm going to go with a 7. I think I agree with Anand. I think they may be just gone down a notch from where they were last season, but that could. I may change my opinion after about 4 or 5 games. They may be delighting me again, and hopefully that's true. Because I do have a bit of a soft spot for Delhi. I'd love to see them raise the trophy at some stage in the next 5 years because they've not done it yet, and they've got very close, haven't they, in the last cycle. Be nice to see them punching towards the end of the competition. So that's 16.5, 24, 31 for Delhi Capitals. I'm not quite sure it's got that many votes. 10 teams now. It's quite hard to actually see where they are, but 31's not a bad score out of 40. CSK, let's move to them. We'll come straight to Rito because I know you've got a bit of a soft spot for CSK, Rito. Jadeja retained, Dhoni retained, Moeen Ali and Gaikwad retained by CSK. They've got a tapper in there, Dwayne Bravo and Bati Rayudu is back there. Deepak Chahar is in there as well. He went for pretty decent money. Shivam Dubey is back in there. Dwayne Pretorius is in there. Devon Conway, Mitchell Santner, Adam Milne. You've got, who else is there? Chris Jordan's gone to CSK as well. I look at their squad, Rito, and I know they're defending champions, and I know they're one of the massive teams, and I know they've got the biggest support, but probably in India. I'm not that impressed by that squad. What about you?
Yeah, I think they have tried to retain the core of their previous sites. They pretty much back their players whole way around. The first pick, 8 picks yesterday were probably 7 CSK players. So they have tried to replicate the sites, and that's pretty evident from there. So later on today they picked on Chris Jordan for a very low price. That was a value pick. Chris Jordan, he has been working on his batting, and now he's again back bowling at full pace. Yorker back at the death over, so that's a value pick. And then
I'll tell you what, Rito, Chris Jordan frustrates the hell out of me when I watch him playing for England. He's either fantastic once every 4 games, or he's ordinary. He's really ordinary 3 out of 4 games. You never quite know what you're going to get. He can be brilliant. He's got this tag of being one of the best death bowlers in the world. But the amount of times he actually delivers, very hit and miss.
Yeah, but in T20 cricket, probably you are asking a player to win you 4 games out of 14. So that's not such a bad ratio from Chris Jordan then.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. Claire, what about you, CSK?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys in there who I like, but and maybe this is just my lack of knowledge, but who's the pace attack? Like, there's no big sort of name bowlers jumping out at me.
You got Dwayne Bravo in there, but he's hardly rapid. Chris Jordan's in there. He's hardly rapid.
Adam Milne.
Adam Milne, yeah, of course he's in there, isn't he? He can be quite quick.
Yeah.
Pretorius, maybe, although all-rounder.
Yeah, Dwayne Pretorius, he's not rapid though, is he?
It just doesn't seem to be one of those, like
there's a lot of kind of like
got
medium, fast medium at best, aren't there? Yeah. I know exactly what he's saying. Yeah, there's a lot of military medium, but nobody that's going to knock your head off.
How quick is Tushar Deshpande?
Deshpande can hit 140s, but he also was a little. He wasn't as accurate, so I think Deshpande can hit the pace, and he can hit 140s, but he was all over the place. I think. Did he play for Delhi Capitals? I forget last year, but yeah.
Yeah, but most teams seem to have one of those, even like an overseas, gun bowler, and they just don't seem to have that. So
Deepak Chahar, anybody?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with Deepak Chahar. I mean, he's shown what he can do. Obviously, at the top of the order, he's going to, commence the inning off, swing the ball around a little, definitely with those outswingers. And then lately, he's developed his batting. So for the Indian team, he's got a few runs in. So, maybe good for a couple of lusty hits towards the end.
Well,
but I think Adam Milne is decent, right? He's got pace.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he can be destructive. I mean, you'd imagine he'll play if he's fit. Deepak Chahar, though, Anand, he frustrates me sometimes. He can look quite ordinary at times, and then all of a sudden he runs in another day and gets 4 for 14 or something.
It's all about swinging the ball, right? I mean, he and Bhuvneshwar Kumar are sort of similar. Of course, Chahar is much younger, so maybe a little more pace. He needs to be able to swing the ball. If there's any swing, he usually is good for a wicket or two. I mean, you're looking at this team, doesn't it almost feel if somebody missed the entire 2021 IPL, would they know that this Chennai Super Kings team is any different? So, okay, Faf isn't there. You're replacing him with Conway and Milne versus Ngiri, but really it's the same team, isn't it?
I mean, and the Dad's Army tag, they've got a lot of the old guard back, haven't they? For another 5-year cycle, they'll be pulling their pensions out and walking on Zimmer frames by the end of this.
Well, I wonder whether they're going with the strategy. I mean, this team looks like it's good for the next 2 years. I mean, and 2 years is maybe stretching it too far. Maybe it's good for the next year, for 2022. And then they're saying, okay, Dhoni is going to be gone. Maybe Bravo's gone. Maybe we get some replacements. I mean, that's the only way this whole thing makes sense.
Does Dhoni play, Anand? Does he keep his place?
He has to. Who else is going to do the job? Who else?
Well, they'd be marching on the stadium if he wasn't in the 11, wouldn't they? They'd be marching on the stadium with banners and torches, wouldn't they?
Tala's got to play for Chennai. I don't see how he's not going to play. What I'm curious about is, Raina had once made a comment that if Dhoni is not playing, then maybe I won't play either. Well, Dhoni's still playing. They didn't pick Raina. I mean, all because he wanted a balcony once. I mean, Raina could have fit in this team because, you look at the ages. Raidu 36, Dhoni is what, 40? Bravo is probably 40. A lot of older players here. So, Moeen Ali is going to play every game and he's going to be a gun.
Yeah. That was an expensive team request, wasn't it, for that balcony that Suresh Raina posted? Cost him a lot, hasn't it? I think that has. CSK then. Let's get the scores on the doors for that, Claire.
7 from me.
7 from Claire. Anand.
Can I add some confusion in here? I think for the next season, this is an 8.5. Going forward from next season, this is a 6. So,
well, let's call it a 7 then. Let's split the difference. Call it a 7. Is that fair?
Sure.
Rito, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Anand. They have just looked at short term, win the championship this year, and then probably release Dhoni and Bravo, and then buy somebody else.
That doesn't give me a number, though, Rito. It's a very good answer, but it doesn't give me
7.
a number. 7. 7 from you. I'm going to give them a 5. I think that's an appalling squad. I think they've done the worst of all of the franchises myself. I think I'm not a CSK fan anyway, but I think CSK are going to really struggle over the next incarnation with that squad.
Also, James, no leg spinner.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that we know of. They certainly have a few, backups who might be able to bowl leg spin, but there's no straight up leg spinner.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because leg spin has been the key spin, hasn't it, in recent times. We move on. I'll tell you what, there's been a couple of messages coming. Let's just go back to them. We're going to get to Mumbai team. I promise you, SS98. We'll get to Mumbai. I'm not going to miss them out. Arjun's song has said, Punjab Kings got the best squad, Claire. Arjun's with you and your franchise there. Punjab Kings, for him, the best squad in IPL 2022. Gujarat Titans, the second of our new franchises. Rashid Khan, Hardik Pandya and Shubman Gill were their pre-auction selections. Jason Roy went for a dirt cheap price for them, went at his base price, which surprised me. Lockie Ferguson's in there, got a good pace attack. Rahul Tewatia. Which team's going to get Tewatia'd in 2022? Dominic Drakes has been picked up by them. You've got David Miller is in there, Vidamin Sahar is in there, Matthew Wade, Gurpreet Singh. It's a kind of middling squad, I'd say, Rito. Would you agree? They've got a few good players in there. Rashid Khan's obviously stellar. Hardik Pandya could be stellar. Shubman Gill's a terrific opener. Jason Roy's a great buy. Mohammed Shami is in there too. It could go either way for me, that team.
Yeah, their squad has got a few holes in there. They did not have a wicket keeper till the last round of the auction. Then they picked up 3 in Wade, and the two others.
Saha.
Oh, yeah,
Saha.
Saha as well. So they have got a few holes. Their coaches Ashish Nehra and their captain is Hardik Pandya. So you can expect the unexpected from that combination.
Going to be interesting, isn't it? It's going to be interesting,
Yeah.
Claire, to see how Gujarat get on.
It is going to be. I mean, I think it'd be really interesting to see how both the new squads get on.
Well, I predicted, Claire, where
yeah.
Knuckle made a comment on our WhatsApp group. He said that the new ones are going to struggle. I think one of them is going to do really well, and the other one might struggle badly. I think Gujarat Titans might be the one that struggles.
Yeah, I think looking at it on paper, I think they might be the one that struggles. But I mean,
I think Lucknow might have a really good season. I think Gujarat might struggle.
Yeah, again, I guess as well, they're kind of stitched together rather than any tried and tested combinations. So yeah, interesting to see how it goes. And
I mean, there's a few players in there, Claire. I mean, David Miller, when he's firing in T20, he can be as powerful as anybody. Maybe not been quite as consistent. Maybe not had as many games as he possibly would have wanted in the last few incarnations of the IPL. There are some good names in there. Tawatia, if Tawatia fires like we've seen him in the past, he's a good spinner, can bowl economical 4 overs, and he can Tawatia the ball about, can't he? Anand, Gujarat.
I might pull a Rito here. I might pull a Rito here and give them a negative point for Rahul Tewatia. Now, I like Rahul Tewatia. Don't get me wrong on here.
So you can't criticize Rahul Tewatia on this podcast. It's not allowed.
This is the Rahul Tewatia podcast, isn't it? I think, have they picked this by that one game that happened in Sharjah that Rahul Tewatia, just gave us emotional chills just watching that game?
He bowls good overs, though, as well. You could bowl him just as a spinner, couldn't you?
You could bowl him as a spinner. I don't think he's a great spinner. So he's a good pick. I just think 9 crores is a lot for him. I mean, if you think Jason Roy went for 2 crores, Rahul Tewatia went for 9 crores, that doesn't make sense to me. This needs to be the other way around.
He deserves that paycheck just purely for that one innings. I know one of Claire's heroes got taken down in that over, but Rahul
Tewatia team got taken down
to win that to win that match from where they were. He deserves 9 crores for just that, doesn't he?
How long ago was that, though?
2020.
Yeah, and it was in
Sharjah, 2 seasons ago. He's still dining out on that.
Claire, if I'd done that, I'd dine out on that forever.
Yeah, well, you would, but the whole of the Gujarat Titans now are dining out.
Having said that, it's a low bar with me. I'd probably dine out on 5 not out at the end of the innings if I just edged one down the third man for 4. Rito, you're desperate to come in with something.
I don't mind players taking high checks, but Rahul Tripathi, he is a spinner, and India does not have any lacking of spinners. So to pay 9 crores for an above average spinner is a bit more.
I agree with that. And Adil Rashid struggles to get picked up by anybody, and he's probably in the top 3 spinners in the world. And Rahul Tewatia goes for 9 crore. That makes no sense to me, that, Rito.
Yeah, absolutely. Adil Rashid, he was number 1 T20 bowler in the world, and still he can't find a gig in the IPLs. And Rahul Tewatia goes for 9 crore. Maybe he can strike the ball a bit better than Adil Rashid. I agree with that, but still 9 crores. It's 5 crores too many for Tewatia.
We've got the wrong Rashid if we're calling him the best T20 bowler in the world. Rashid Khan is the best T20 bowler in the world.
I said top 3.
Rashid is not the best T20 in the world.
I said top 3 in the world in terms
top
of leg
3,
spin.
Sure. I'll buy that. I like a deal. And, I really think, some of the teams have missed out on picking him out here because I think he would have done well. But don't you look at this team and feel they got into the auction and they had Hardik Pandya, Rashid Khan, and Shubman Gill. That's a great trio. And then it feels like the auction hasn't really gone well with them because it's like, who's doing middle order batting? It's Hardik Pandya, Vijay Shankar, Matthew Wade? Who's and Hardik is great.
What cricket have they been watching, or the IPL in its entirety been watching, to bid Liam Livingstone? Nothing, not knocking Liam Livingstone, terrific player, but to take him up to 11 crore or whatever it was in the end. Was it even more than that? Wasn't it? I can't remember. But massive
11,
figure.
25,
Massive figure for Liam Livingstone. Jason Roy goes for 2 crore. Only one team's interested in him. Who's been watching those? Liam Livingstone is definitely worth a pick and definitely worth big money. But Jason Roy's been bagging it all over the place. When he's on fire, I mean, I know his recent IPL hasn't been terrific, but he's better than 2 crore, isn't he?
Well, what did he do last week? Didn't he get 150 and
Yeah, he was out for a duck today.
Yeah, but he got 100 off. What was it, 48 balls or something ridiculous the other day? It was a terrific knock. Yeah, I mean, I think Gujarat got a very good value pick with him. Let's get the marks then out of 10 for Gujarat Titans. Claire,
I'm gonna go for 6 for them.
6 from Claire. Anand.
6 it is.
6 from Anand. Rito.
A 7.
A 7 from Rito. I think they are just marginally better than CSK. I'm going to go for a 5.5. So what does that total us up at? That's 12, 19, 24.5 for the Gujarat Titans, which puts them pretty low down, it has to be said, in terms of where we are with that. Claire's just dropped off. Where's Claire disappeared to? We need her back for the scoring on the remaining games. Here she comes. We'll add her back to the stream. And she'll reappear in just a second. KKR, Rito, this is your team. Andre Russell, Sunil Nareen, Venkatesh Iyer, player that I like. Varun Chakravarti in there as well. 4 good retentions for KKR. Pat Cummins is back at half the price. Beautiful piece of business from KKR as well. Nitish Rana is in there. I like him a lot. Shreyas Iyer is in there too. Terrific player. Alex Hales back into T20 action in the IPL too. Sam Billings got picked up at the second time of asking. Tim Southey is in there as well. I quite like the look of KKR, Rito. Would you agree? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I do agree. And I agree with the point that Pat Cummins bought him for 15 last season and then released him and again bought him back for 7.5, something like that. That was a good bit of business from Venky Mysore and team. And probably they paid a bit of premium for Shreyas Iyer, the would-be captain of Kolkata Knight Riders. So yeah, you can afford that for the captain.
You think Shreyas will get the job, do you?
Yeah, I think that's the rumor in the circles, James, that he will get the job.
I imagine with Shreyas Iyer, he's got. I felt for him when he got injured and Rishabh Pant took over and he didn't get the captaincy back because I think he was doing a really good job at Delhi. I think he'll do a good job for KKR as well.
Fingers crossed. But I was just a bit worried about the squad till they picked up Sam Billings and Alex Hales. Again, Sam and Alex, together at 3.5 is a real steal. And looking at Alex Hales, I don't know how the franchises never bid for him. Maybe Owen Morgan have all set them up. Don't bid for him. He's not a good man, And
I imagine if Owen Morgan had still been a KKR player, they wouldn't have gone anywhere near Alex Hales. But what did Alex Hales go for in the end? I missed towards the end of the auction. What price did he go for?
1.5 crore.
Which is
base price.
That's a bargain for a player that can actually win a match on his own from the top of the order. And KKR, how do you see them?
Deja vu 2021, isn't it? Most of their team is what they had earlier. I mean, I think Venkatesh Iyer, Varun Chakravarti, Andre Russell, Sureen Narayan, Nitish Rana, Pat Cummins. I think when Mavi was with them. So, I mean, all of these guys were there in 2021. So, hey, if you missed 2021 IPL, you get the same folks here. I think if Morgan didn't like Hales earlier, he's probably not going to like him anymore now because it looks like it's a swap right here. Which I think was fine. Morgan has struggled quite a bit, especially against high-paced bowling. That's sort of short. He hasn't done well internationally all at the IPL.
I think Owen Morgan's time is nearly up. I think in terms of he just seems to have lost a little bit of his mojo. His captaincy is obviously still there, tactically very sound, but in terms of England as well, I think it's only a matter of time before Josh Butler takes over at the helm for England, and whether that's before the T20 World Cup or after it. Because I think Owen Morgan, to be honest, he's a pretty noble character. I think if he feels he's not contributing to that side, he'll actually probably stand down before the T20 World Cup. So possibly needs a few runs, doesn't he, before that comes around. Claire, KKR. The big man, Andre Russell. He's so important, isn't he? I mean, they've got some terrific names in there. How do you see them? How do you see them shaping up?
Well, Russell and Narayan, obviously that's where they've been retained out there. They're like, but if you come through the middle, you might see a bit of purple in there. But
They're like the prefects, aren't they? They're the kind of top of the class boys that are always going to be smiled upon.
yeah, and I think that's part of kind of the fun of the IPL kind of thing is you have these core figures. So and like Anand says, it's got a real same feel to it. But bringing Tim Southey in, hopefully that'll a good combination with Cummins. So yeah, I think they look like a strong team.
I think the additions have actually added to them. I think,
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying about them looking good or looking similar to last season, but I think they've brought in a few cherries on top myself.
Yeah.
Last question to you, Rita, before we get the scores. Who's going to open for KKR? Because you look at Alex Hales come in. He's an opener. You got Venkatesh Iyer in there as well. You've got Ajinkya Rahani's in there at the top of the order too, isn't he? I mean, he's probably a number 3, I guess as well. But there's a number of top order. Shreyas Iyer, number of top order candidates to be in the top 3, and there's probably everybody wants to bat in the top 3. And there's more people than 3 places. Who is your top 3 from that squad?
I think since they have retained Venkatesh Iyer, he must open the batting for KKR and Alex Hales. That's such a good addition. Because I
mean,
say
Nitish Rana's in there as well. I mean, he's opened as well in the past in the tournament, isn't he?
Yeah, he has opened, but I think probably V. Iyer, Alex Hales, Shreyas Iyer, and then Nitish Rana and Billings afloat. Then the floaters come in, and again the buy of Alex Hales has pleased me this season more so because yes, he struggles against spin a bit, but this season we are hearing that the IPL will be entirely played in Maharashtra, 4 grounds in Mumbai and 1 in Pune. So those are all very good batting surfaces, and the ball comes on. So that's where Alex Hales is at his most destructive best.
Yeah, Alex Hales is a definite plus to that squad. Regardless of what you think to what he's done in the past and all the rest of it, he's definitely still a fantastic player. I think he really does add a little bit to that KKR squad. Maybe they won't be 5th again, Rito, and maybe they might actually get towards the latter stages. Who knows? Let's get the scores on the doors for KKR. Rito's not going to respond to that. Let's get on the scores on my little cheeky comment. Claire, KKR out of 10.
I'm going to give him a 9.
A 9 from Claire. That makes them nearly as good as the Punjab Kings, Claire, in your view.
Almost.
Anand, let's stay in the same order. You've confused me by moving around on the screen now. But to Anand, next up with you.
I think I'm going to give them a 7.5. A lot of it depends on Andre Russell. If he's fit and going, then 8.5. Well, so 7.5 for now.
As we saw, was it 3 seasons ago? He can win matches that are just gone on his own. If he's that tree trunk arms, massive muscles, Russ the Muss. If he's on fire, it's great to watch. Rito, mark out of 10. And don't say 12.
Yeah, James quickly, one cricketer we haven't talked about in that squad is Shamika Karunaratne. Maybe Russell won't play all the 16 games probably this season, but still Shamika Karunaratne can be an replacement for Andre Russell. So 20 for them.
You giving them 20? Did you just say?
Yeah.
What was your score?
9.
9 from Rito. I'm just looking back at my scores that I've given in the past. Let's have a look at this. I think I'm going to give them the highest I've given so far is 8.5 for Lucknow. I'm going to give them an 8.5 as well. I'm actually really quite impressed with the way KKR could potentially shape up as we go into IPL 2022. We're at how many franchises have we done now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 1 left, haven't we? Which is, it's the best of the lot, Anand, isn't it? Mumbai Indians, Rohit Sharma, Kiran Pollard, Jasprit Bumrah, and Suryakumar Yadav, the 4 retentions. That's not a bad spine to build around. Ishan Kishan has been bought back at big money. But they've brought him back because obviously they've invested a lot in Ishan Kishan and they wanted to get some return over the next 5 years for that. Devald Brevis is a name that I think we might see a little bit of in IPL 22. Baby AB, isn't he? In terms of how he approaches the game. A few more in there that we can talk about. Jafar Archer was mentioned by SS98 on the question earlier. He won't be featuring in the 2022 edition, but will be back in when he's fully fit. Hopefully for Jofra further down the line. Daniel Sams, Timar Mills, Tim David, Riley Meredith, You've got some good players. Arjun Tendulkar is still in the fold, and Fabian Allen in there as well. You happy with that, Anand?
So I think this team was also not as talented as the team that we had in the last year. I thought the team didn't really have any holes last year, whereas here you can certainly see a few. So first of all, you lose the Pandyas. That certainly hurts. Now they've taken, as usual, Mumbai comes in with some very clear thinking of what they're going to do in the auction. So if you look at it, they just waited throughout the auction and then started really going hard at people that they needed. For example, Ishan Kishan, they wanted a keeper. They went hard at him, certainly paid a lot of money, but Ishan Kishan might be good. Young player, got a lot of potential. Where I'm curious about is how well will Tim David work out? You look at his stats, he looks really great. Can he come and take over and make that spot that Krunal sort of had? Although he's not an all-rounder, but still, will Tim David come and take over that spot? Also,
as you say, I mean, Tim David's stats are tremendous, and when he's on form, he's a terrific player. I think he could be a really good buy.
Yeah, I certainly think he could be a good buy. It's just that he's brand new. So, again, it goes back to Mumbai's scouting ability, right? That's been renowned. That's how they found Bumrah. So the second thing is Deval Brevis. Is this a pick looking forward that's really going to pay off? Is going to pay off right away? I think a lot of what Mumbai has done is going to pay off later. Like Jafar Archer and Bumrah bowling in the last 4 overs. Please tell me how somebody's going to get a run.
Well,
it's going to be tough.
I want to hear Claire's thoughts on this. If you're a batsman and you are playing Mumbai Indians tomorrow and you go to sleep at night and you think you can see Jafar Archer in one eye and you can see Jasprit Bumrah in the other, you are going to have a sleepless night, aren't you?
Well, pretty much, yeah.
I mean, not in 2022.
You might be sleeping with one eye open. I mean, whatever format of cricket you're playing in, with those two in your team, you're starting with you've got a head start, haven't you?
And Timon Mills is in there as well from
yeah,
England.
nice
Daniel Sams is a good player too. So they've got a good bowling, a few bowling options there. Obviously, Joffre's not available this year, so they will be having to look further down the list.
Is that Riley Meredith?
The strategy, Rito, that was asked about before about having Jofra. I can see this strategy being actually a pretty decent one. They've got him on the cheap, a lot cheaper than they would have had to get him if he was going to be available straight away. There's obviously a little bit of doubt about his fitness, but I'm sure he'll bounce back. He's a fit lad and he'll get over his injury. Touch wood. It could be a stroke of genius by Mumbai, couldn't it, to get Jofra for further down the line to link up with Jasprit and what have you?
Yeah, I think for this year they have got Timon Mills for 1.5 and Jofra for the next 2 years for 8. So if you're playing for Jafar Archer, only 9 crores for 3 years, that's a really good bargain, I think, in this market.
I'm really pleased for Tim Al as well, because I had him on the podcast a while back, and I know he was talking about unfinished business in the IPL, and he wanted to get back into it. He's obviously played in the Big Bash, and if you're watching Tim Al, good luck in for the Mumbai Indians. It's my team, so I can properly support you now, and I think he could do really well. I think he'd probably be disappointed with his showings for England in the Caribbean in the T20 internationals. He's better than that, and on some pacey tracks in Mumbai, he might be quite a handful, I think. So Tim Mills might be one to watch. I'm going to start with you, Anand. Let's give you first dibs on the Mumbai Indians. You can set the tone. They're your team. How many out of 10 are you going to give them?
I'm going to give them an 8.5 because I think they have had a clear strategy, and I think they've implemented. The only question that I have is who's going to take wickets up front and also leg spinners. They have taken 2, but they both are restrictive defensive leg spinners.
Yeah, agreed. Claire, your second team, Mumbai Indians, how do you rate them?
8 is how I rate them.
Rito?
Maybe when...
Oh, are you going to change your mind?
No, I was just going to say, I think when in terms of their performances, once Joffrey's fit, I guess they'd be higher up the list. And the strategy was right. But I'm giving them an 8, sticking to my 8.
Rito?
7.5.
7.5 from Rito. Right, I'm going to have to try not to be biased here. James is going to give them, where have I gone with everybody else? I'm going to give them an 8, I think. They're not quite the top end of my spectrum, but they're getting close in terms of how they've done in the auction. So let's run down the scores of where we've got so far. Well, we've finished. Punjab Kings with 35. Somebody write these down for me. Rito, you got a pen there?
No, I
Somebody
don't
got
have
a
a
pen?
pen.
Anybody got a pen?
Yeah, 1 sec. I'll do it.
Write these down so we can put them in some kind of order.
Yeah.
Anybody ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Right.
Oh, are you ready, Anand?
Yeah.
Okay. Punjab Kings got 35, Anand.
Got it.
Rajasthan Royals 30.5. RCB 27. SRH got 24.5. Lucknow Super Giants 34.5. Delhi Capitals scored 31. CSK got a mere 26, the defending champions. Gujarat Titans 24.5. KKR scored, I'm not told, 60.5, 25.5, 33, 34.
Which one was the last one, Jay?
KKR got 34. And Mumbai Indians scored 32. So if you could order those for me, and then we can read them out in reverse order. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we go from 10th to 1st, this is how IPL 2022 is going to finish. And Ambika, you have the honours.
So, drum roll, please. Starting at the joint 9th place, SRH and Gujarat Titans with 24.5.
That'll please Neil.
They're going to get followed up by the Colossus Jazz CSK at 26.
So they're in 8th place.
8th place.
In 7th.
7th is the Virat Challengers, or the Viratians, the Royal Viratians. So they come in at 7th.
We've underplayed them a little bit, haven't we? 6th.
Come in the Rajasthan Royals with 30.5.
5th. Kolkata Knight Riders by any chance, Rito? Anand, tell me.
No. Actually, it's one of my second favorite teams, Delhi Capitals, 31.
Delhi Capitals in 5th. In 4th place.
It's the best team of all time. You know, we don't have to give the name, but they're coming 4th with 32 points.
Mumbai Indians in 4th. Then 3rd.
Comes in Rito, and I think Rito gave 14 to KKR. That's why they're 3rd.
Yeah, I think Rito gave him about 28, didn't he? Everybody else gave them 0. No, the KKR actually, I think, looked pretty decent. 2nd place.
2nd place are the Lucknow Super Giants. Excellent auction strategy there.
Yeah, look, now I've done very well. And the winner then of IPL 2022, judging by how we've assessed their various squads and their auction strategies, Claire's already celebrating. The party poppers are going. It is an Ambika.
The Punjab. I forget the last name of their team because they keep changing it.
The queen of the Punjab Kings is
Punjab
with
Kings,
us.
there we go.
Claire Sanderson, you are looking forward to IPL success.
Well, there you go. So let's just see if it all works out how as good as it looks on paper.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be interesting. I always like an IPL auction. As I said at the very start, it's different, isn't it? It's something, you see the big money floating around. Just one final point or one final question. Is there anybody that stands out as being somebody that's been missed that was not picked up? And we mentioned Adil Rashid before. Steve Smith went unbought. Anybody that stands out as somebody you feel was a bit unlucky?
To me, it's Amit Mishra. Partly because a lot of these teams are missing leg spinners. Indian leg spinner, you can slot him in. You don't have to worry about overseas slots. He would not have gone for that expensive a prize as well. I think Amit Mishra, and if you look at the number of wickets, I think he's right up there. So I think he could have given you a couple of good years.
Anybody else?
For me, it was a deal, and you've already mentioned him. So
Yeah.
I think he got a deal.
I mean, I do think there's two reasons why Adil doesn't get picked up. There's the fact that he's got the Pakistani heritage, which doesn't go down well with Indian franchises, and there is the fact that India, rightly or wrongly, think they've got bags and bags of spinning talent. But as Anand just said, there's teams that have a bit bereft of leggies, which is a very, very potent weapon, isn't it, in IPL? So, yeah.
But would it be fair to say about the Pakistani heritage bit, because Moin gets picked every year?
Yeah.
And it's not.
But I think when I've ever mentioned Adil Rashid in terms of the IPL, I get so many messages. People send me, because Adil's made no secret of his support for the Pakistanis in Kashmir and stuff like that. He's been out there and given out food parcels. and he cares a lot about that region. And I don't think that necessarily plays well with the Indian. It frustrates the hell out of me, this India-Pakistan thing. They're two wonderful nations, two sets of wonderful people. Just get on, please. Just get on. I just can't understand it. Let's peace and love, everybody. Peace and love. And we should have, we should have Indians playing in the PSL. We should have Pakistani players playing in the IPL. I know it's not going to happen in the foreseeable because there's so much political baggage around the edges of this, but it does seem a crying shame to me. It really does.
I guess did Shakib get picked up in the end? No, because I think I was a bit miffed about that. I mean, maybe not.
I can't stand him, Claire. Can't stand him.
They brought him back.
No,
they brought him back, and then again he went unsold.
I think Shakib. I feel quite strongly about match fixing and all that kind of stuff. And Shakib's history there. I know it's not reporting it and various things, but I just don't like it. I think allowing players to come back into the setup is dangerous. And some of the videos of some of Shakib's behaviour on the pitch, where he's been kicking down stumps and throwing bats about and physically almost threatening umpires, that doesn't play well with me either. I'm a kind of terrific player, but I've lost a lot of faith in him as a person personally. So I'm not particularly distraught that he's not involved.
Oh, I mean, I wasn't distraught. It was just like one of those players that you think.
Back to Shakib, Steve Smith wasn't picked. Obviously, Adil wasn't. Mujibur Rahman wasn't picked. Imran Tahir wasn't picked.
Mujib's interesting, isn't he? Because Mujib at one stage was right up there in terms of. But I guess again, in the same way as Adil, he's an overseas spinner that maybe they think they can do without.
Samshi as well.
Who?
Was Shamsi in the auction? Because.
Oh yeah.
Tabrez Shamsi. I'm not sure actually. I didn't see his name.
He was. His base price was 1 crore, and he didn't get picked. So did Sandeep Lamichhane. So it's weird that a lot of spinners haven't been picked, and I wonder whether they will get picked when somebody gets injured or whatnot. So watch out for some of these folks to come in. I mean, we saw Adil Rashid come in last year. So,
and to be fair to him, Adil didn't have a great time, did he, when he came in? He got pumped a little bit, so maybe that doesn't help him too much. But it's been terrific to catch up with all three of you because it's been a while since we last spoke. Anand wants to have a final word, I think.
Can I ask one question to all of you guys? So far, CSK, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Rajasthan Royals have won the IPL. Do you think any of the others have a chance? There's 5 teams who have not won so far.
Well, I mean, on the basis of our vote and on the basis of how I assess the squad, I think, look, now I've got a real chance in their maiden IPL. They look pretty strong to me. That'll be my answer.
Punjab?
Well, I was going to say, you know what my answer will be to that, don't you?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry. I've said the wrong thing, haven't I? Please forgive me. Please forgive me.
James, I was teeing it up so that I just put it out there so Claire could just tee off on it.
Yeah. Well, I was right there, but I think James got in there first. But
Rito, have you got any advance on Punjab or Lucknow?
Yeah, Lucknow. Their owner is my father's Xbox, so I have to just back them.
We have an in. Right, Claire, enjoy this moment. Your team has been voted to finish top. That we've just kind of agreed that Lucknow or Punjab Kings are going to be the team that are going to be, breaking their duck in terms of the IPL. Enjoy it now, because once they've lost the first 5, you'll be devastated. So make sure you soak up this moment and keep the faith.
Yeah, absolutely, I will. Don't you worry. Yeah, well, I mean, Johnny Bairstow. I mean, once we've got him, I was like, oh, this is just, it was meant to be.
I tell you what, though, I was surprised that Johnny didn't go higher. I thought Johnny would get bid up at least a couple more crore than he did do. And they bailed out. Sunrisers tried to keep him and then gave up on him, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I was happy. I was so happy. Honestly.
I think Johnny is right up there in terms of the best batsman in white ball cricket. I think he was worth 2 or 3 more crore at least. I think he's gone relatively cheaply. I mean, I know it's not cheap by any means, by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. That's when Nicholas Puran's price just amazes me. I don't know. Bairstow has done it regularly in the IPL before, and still he only bags 5 or 6 crores, something like that. And Nicholas Puran breaks the rule.
Yeah, well, Johnny Bairstow, let's face it, he has to fight to get a place in the England team, doesn't he?
On the basis then played nearly double for Nicholas Puran than Johnny Bairstow went for in the end. that seems a little bit strange for Sunrisers for me. It really does. But we're going back about 40 minutes and going back into the Sunrise. We're going to have to finish this discussion at some stage. It's going to be great, though, isn't it? The IPL, 10 teams this time. And all of these questions that we've got that we're not quite sure how these teams are going to stack up, which 11s they're going to play, which 4 of the overseas players are going to be in those first 11s, and how they're going to actually perform when they get on that green stuff. It is going to be really, really interesting. We're yet to get the fixtures out. The IPL never get the fixtures out more than about 2 days before the first game starts. So they almost get to the stage where they have the opening ceremony and then release the fixtures with that, don't they? It gets that close. But can't wait for that to come out. And, of course, on the Cricket Badger podcast, we'll be covering the IPL throughout. Whether it'll be daily or whether it'll be maybe 2 or 3 times a week, we'll see as we go through it. But can't wait. Can't wait, Claire, Anand and Rito. Thank you very much for joining me today. Good to see all 3 of you because it's been a while since our IPL gang has been together. And I look forward to joining up with you to talk about IPL 2022 when it gets underway. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will talk to you very soon. This is podcast, by the way, Cricket Badger podcast number 499. Tomorrow on Valentine's Day, number 500 will come out. So we've squeezed this one in to make tomorrow's number 500. So thank you for joining me, and we'll talk to you very soon indeed. Cheers all.